Okay, we're officially live. It's the day after July 4th. I'm here with Billy Athern Jeffries Jr., a.k.a. my dad. How you doing today?
Good.
Good. This is your first time on audio in a while, right?
Yes.
In front of a microphone.
Probably since I was in high school when I worked at the radio station.
See, we're already learning new things. I knew I'd be learning things today. Well, the whole purpose of this is just sort of like a video log of talking to family members, getting to know their lives. I think a lot of people these days don't take the time to really get to know their family. And that's really all it is.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. I didn't really fully explain it until just now. But,
yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. So, I guess we'll start off and just say, how was your 4th? How'd it go?
We had a good time.
I came over and hung out.
Yeah.
Brought the family, brought Soba and the kids. Well, kid, Gavin.
Yeah.
Another one on the way.
Yeah. It was hot, but I managed. I didn't get sunburned.
That's an accomplishment in itself.
Yeah.
Considering you said you can get sunburned in overcast weather.
Mm-hmm. I stayed in the shade.
Yeah. So you've been retired almost a year now, right?
Almost a year. August 4th.
What's the best part about it? What do you like?
While you have a to-do list, you don't have to do anything at any particular time.
Yeah, that's got to be nice. Not as much pressure.
No.
I'm on the other end where I'm moving into more and more pressure in the job.
Right.
It's like, all right, you got to do everything.
Pay all your dues.
Yeah, I'm paying my dues now. But that's the goal, is it'll be worth it on the other end.
Yeah.
So, what are you looking forward to most on the back half of 2024?
Back half of 2024.
Yeah, we've got 6 months left. You know.
Yeah, not much is going to go on the rest of 2024. Of course, we always look forward to football season because we're big Memphis Tiger football fans.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
that'll start up in end of August.
Yeah.
And
We're talking
that's
a little
when
about
we'll
that.
actually take a couple of vacations to a couple of away games. So
Cool. Where are you going to go?
we haven't planned that part out yet. More than likely, we'll definitely go to San Antonio. San Antonio is where we went when New Orleans was underwater from Katrina.
Yeah.
That's where we went to get away and just sort of eat some good dinners.
Okay.
We liked
San Antonio's
Riverwalk.
cool.
Yeah.
Plus, are you far from Dallas there, where AJ is?
It's a pretty good drive, but it's close enough you can visit on the
You
way
can do
down or the way back.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about Hurricane Katrina yesterday for some random reason. I mean, I know it happened like 20 years ago, but I feel like that was one of those big events that defined like our lifetime. Like the 2008 financial crisis, Hurricane Katrina,
Yeah.
I don't know, certain presidential elections.
It was definitely the most catastrophic weather event we've had. Maybe not total dollar damage. Maybe some of the hurricanes were more because they covered more area. But
Yeah.
in terms of concentrating that area, New Orleans has really never recovered in terms of population.
To this day?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people have gone back, but they probably lost, I don't know, a third, and they're probably still down 20%.
Yeah, it's crazy. New Orleans, I think, is one of those like kind of dying cities. Kind of like how LA is now too. Like there's certain cities that back in the day they were big, they were popping. Now they're kind of fading, and the new ones are rising up.
Yeah.
I think Memphis is a bit like that too. Just in my experience.
Memphis treads water. I mean, you got this thing with Elon Musk. I don't really understand much about it, but it sounds like a pretty big deal. That and the Blue Oval City. So.
Yep, those are two big projects for getting jobs here, and they're like high tech, so
yeah,
they'll probably be here for a while. But I feel like Memphis as the home of like blues and rock and roll, a lot of it's like old heads now. You know, the people of my generation and younger, they don't know too much about it.
That's true.
Yeah.
Particularly the blues side, yeah.
Yeah. I walked by a plaque yesterday that said, we were in Cooper Young, and it said Johnny Cash first gig ever was here at this church, and he tried to sing gospel songs. It turns out.
That's neat.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. Apparently he was like an appliance salesman when he first started. He'd just go door to door.
I saw Johnny I forget his wife's name, June Carter, cash in a barn in, I guess it was out in Collierville. At the time, I didn't know Collierville that well.
Yeah.
When I was a teenager. So it was like a political fundraiser, and somehow I got an invitation, and that was pretty good. I mean, you had 300 people there.
Okay.
Yeah, with Johnny Cash was already a star at that point.
Yeah, he was just coming back to his roots. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. So were you involved in the local politics scene?
I was in the Teenage Republicans when I was a teenager.
Okay. I didn't know that. Did you ever think about running? You ever think about running for office?
Not for public office. I ran for president of the organization. I lost by a vote.
By one vote?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you had a little bit of popularity then. You had some friends.
Yeah, that was all right. People knew I was smart anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, tell me a little bit about the college days. You've told me you were in a fraternity, you went to Memphis, but then you went to UT Martin briefly.
Okay, let me give it to you chronologically.
Yeah, what's the full time?
So I graduated high school a year early when I was 17, and I went to UT Martin my first year. I had a academic scholarship, paid about half based on ACT scores.
Which, how much was that back then?
Tuition probably wasn't $1,500 a semester, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, room and board was half that.
Okay.
So, but anyway, I had it about half paid, and I had saved up money working in high school. And but by the time I got done with that freshman year, I was pretty much out of money. So I moved back to Memphis, and got a job, lived with my mom. Took classes, and then I took a job in Nashville, selling construction supplies, which was the worst thing I've ever. It was the worst job I was worse at it than any other job I ever had.
Okay.
I'm not a salesperson, and
people who might be hearing that, there's a train that comes by here, so you're just getting a taste of what it's like.
Yeah.
Living in the South.
You don't hear the train when you live here anymore. But anyway, so that second year, I went to Memphis a semester, and then I moved to Nashville, and started going to Middle Tennessee State at night while I worked a day job.
Oh, okay.
And then I did that for a year and a half till the end of that term. Then I came back to Memphis and started going to school like mega hours, like 19 to 21 hours a semester.
Oh, you were just trying to knock it out. You were like, I'm ready to be done.
Yeah. But at that point, I also changed majors, so I had to take all my sciences because I had been a business major.
You were a business major originally?
I was an accounting major.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I had a year of college accounting and another, I don't know, whatever.
This is why you did everyone in the family's taxes for so long.
Yeah, another half a dozen business courses, like finance and econ and some of those things. But anyway, so then I got concentrated on, biology major, chemistry minor, and it just turned out that so I got that degree. It took 85 semester hours in 24 months, going summers and everything.
Let's see, 85 hours in 24 months.
That's essentially 3 years in 2 years.
Yeah, I was about to say,
Yeah.
You were an overachiever there.
Yeah.
And
worked part-time nights and evenings.
What were you doing for work?
I rented video tapes. That was back when the video tape rental thing was just getting started. In fact, that was when Beta was bigger than VHS.
Oh, the Sony stuff.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I remember that. Did you know that Beta was going to go downhill? You were like, this ain't going to last.
I have no clue.
You had bigger things to worry about, it sounds like.
Yeah. So that was college. I got done, it took me 5 years to finish up. But
yeah. What year did you graduate?
83.
1983. Okay.
So I graduated the same year as my original high school classmates would have, that if it didn't take them an extra year.
Okay, so you did take like a year off somewhere in between there?
I never took any time off.
Okay.
I was going at night. I was still taking 12 semester hours at night when I was at Middle Tennessee State. And then I graduated with a whole bunch extra hours because of changing majors.
Oh, that's why. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you never did you ever think about going back and getting that accounting degree?
No.
Life moved on from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. You said you used to sell construction supplies, but you
Yep.
were terrible at it.
I was terrible at it. And I don't like talking to strangers in the first place. And
Yeah.
then, I was just a college kid, and these were seasoned old construction workers, these superintendents. They didn't have too much time for me.
That's okay. I tried doing waiting tables,
Yeah.
and that was what I was terrible at. Whenever I was going through college, I was just would get the orders mixed up, get nervous. I had too many things at once. Yeah, I was notoriously bad at that. Okay, so you graduated in '83. You're kind of out of the '70s and the sad times of the U.S., right? The '70s was when it was like kind of rough, from what I understand.
Yeah. I guess well, the 70s weren't that bad. It was the end of the 60s. I guess it was the early 70s. Vietnam was a pretty sad ordeal,
Yeah.
And when I was growing up, all the guys that are about your age now were Vietnam vets, and of course they didn't diagnose PTSD, but all those guys had it.
Man, so they were just out of luck.
Yeah.
They would just go crazy, and people were like, we don't know why. Something wrong with them. But every normal person probably knew. It's like from the war.
Well, they would admit it. I mean, they just couldn't. They didn't have a lot of treatments for it like they do today.
Yeah.
They didn't have a lot of meds for it. They didn't have a lot of counseling for it or any of that. So.
Yeah, ways to take care of it. Okay, so when was Heather, the oldest of us, born?
1988.
Okay, so you graduate college. You got about a 5-year gap there. What were you doing in those 5 years when you were still kind of living the bachelor life or the young adult life?
Yeah. So, I got married the first time while I was in college, and that lasted till about 3 years after I graduated college. Well, till 85, so about 2 years after. But you're probably more interested. My first job, I was working for the Veterans Administration doing biological research on chondroitin sulfate, chondroitin glucosamine. They were developing those treatments for
Chondroitin
arthritis.
glucosamine.
Yeah.
Is that like messing with the sugars? What is that?
No, it's a medication that assists in arthritis. It
Oh, okay.
It actually gets healthy cells. My understanding of it, I had the tests that I was supposed to do every day, and I did those tests.
Okay.
But I worked for an MD, and I worked with a couple of PhDs. But my understanding of it was it basically gets cells to go to the area that needs attention and help repair some of the damaged tissue.
Okay, so that was your first use of biology in the real world.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And so while you were doing that, you said you had your first marriage.
Yeah, well, we divorced 2 years after I graduated college.
Yeah.
But that was my first job. And then I met your mother in 1985, 86, somewhere
Okay.
in there.
How old were you when you met her?
I was 25.
Okay, so you're younger than I am now by
Yeah.
a few years, but not too much younger.
Yeah, I was 25. At that point, though, I had sown on my wild oats, and I was ready to start a family.
Okay, yeah. That's about the age. That's about when I moved back here in 2019. I was kind of in that stage where I'm like, all right, I've done my fun times around. Like, I'll still go have fun, but it's not the same adrenaline as it once was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got married, I guess, in '86. And
You guys married quick.
I wasn't divorced very long. And then Heather was born in '88,
Okay.
February of '88. So. Then Nicole came along in January of 1990, so there was
Yeah.
not a big gap between those two.
And by that time, you are out of Tennessee.
Living
You've
in
gone to
Georgia. Yeah, we're living and working in Georgia. So the second company I worked for after I left the VA was AOC, who I just retired from. Except it was called Alpha Corporation back then.
Okay.
And
Wow.
So, and basically, I started out doing what they call synthesis, which is where you put the raw materials together and figure out what kind of polymer you're going to make, and then you assess it for the liquid and mechanical properties. And
Okay.
you're usually the project, you have a target, and you're having to do a series of, we call them cooks, and you had to do a series of cooks to basically dial in the properties you needed
To make what? What kind of products?
to make unsaturated polyesters for fabricating.
Okay. Okay, so you're really working on the raw material side.
I'm working on the front end of the business. This is what we do in our reactors in the plants.
Yeah.
But I'm doing the work in the lab and then going through scale up in the plants.
Yeah. Okay. And so, how did you wind up in Georgia then, doing that?
So I had gotten passed over for promotion, and I got hired away by a headhunter for the first time.
Okay. Okay. So, like, you had a friend who moved to somewhere else, and they're like, hey,
So I got promoted
Bill's
from basically being a chemist to being what they call a technical director.
good. Okay.
I was in charge of about 5 other chemists.
Yeah, that's cool. So at that point, you're kind of doing a little bit of leadership stuff there too.
Yeah. And I was in charge of the QC, which was half a dozen or so plant workers that double checked everything coming out of the plant. Made sure
Okay, so you're the one who made sure that when it got to the customer, everything is looking good.
Right.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
That's when you start actually having some real stakes.
Yeah. So that started in 1989. So I was what then? 28.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's about right.
that's cool.
Best I remember. That's a long time ago. It's hard to remember all these details.
Right, you're having to go down memory lane now. I know. I know. Yeah, it's weird to think that was quite a while
Yeah.
ago.
We went to Georgia, and Nicole was born in Georgia.
Yeah.
And here's an anecdote. So I made my first major financial foobar when we sold our house in Collierville, your mother and I.
Okay.
And I sold it on an assumption. So I find out when I get ready to buy a new house that I'm on the hook legally for both loans. So they wouldn't really loan me much money for a house in Georgia.
Oh, what is selling on an assumption? What does that mean?
So basically I sold it to the real estate guy that we bought it from, and he sort of tricked me. Anybody with experience knows shouldn't buy a house on an assumption.
Okay.
But what it means is you're legally saying if the new buyer doesn't make the mortgage, you'll make it. Now the problem, I wasn't concerned about that side of it because the buyer was a real estate investor, back in the day. In fact, he probably owns more properties in Collierville than anybody else. But he wanted his cash flow, so it basically strung me out to dry on buying a new house.
Yeah.
So don't ever sell on an assumption. Don't.
Because he knew what he was doing. He knew the game, name of the game.
He knew the game. Yeah, I didn't know much about the real estate market at that time, but that taught me. I learned at that point.
Right. A hard lesson.
But we still did manage to get a house. It just wasn't as nice as we could have afforded because we had.
Yeah, you said it was kind of in a rural area out in Georgia, right?
Yeah, a little town called Locust Grove. We're outside of Locust Grove, way out in the country.
Did you like the country life? Are you more of a city guy, or maybe suburbs, or country?
I've been more of a suburb guy. I've never been a city guy. I lived in the city when I was in college, but because that's what the university was. But I've always been more of a suburb guy. But I think now, with retirement, that I would like to at least try the country.
Okay.
Yeah, I think when we've gone on vacations and we've had a lot of solitude, that's been some of the times we've enjoyed the most.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Like you talk about when you go out. I know you guys like to go out to vineyards and things like that, and they're kind of out in the country, like in nature. And you guys seem to be very fond of those memories.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be cool. Growing your own
Just like
grapes.
a couple of years ago, we went to the Ozarks. We made a long trip. We took a week, went to the Ozarks.
Yeah.
And basically it ended up by going to a football game on a Saturday and coming home on a Sunday.
It's fun. So Georgia, at this point, You're kind of leading some other chemists. You're moving up a bit in the career. How's it going on the home life?
It was okay at that point.
Okay.
It was okay. When Nicole was born, it was okay. I mean, your mom's always been. I had no idea what bipolar disorder was. I just knew she was moody.
Okay. You knew like something was up. You're like, she's a little strange.
I didn't know what manic depressive was, but I just knew that she had those ups and downs. Mostly she had downs. She didn't have very many ups.
Okay. Yeah, that tracks.
And she'd just get irrational, over the least little thing.
Yeah. How was she with driving?
Oh, she was a horrible rider.
She's always been terrible with driving.
She's terrified. When we were dating, we took a vacation in the Ozarks. And those Ozarks aren't even high mountains, they're just hills, really.
Yeah.
And we would do those hairpin curves and double backs, and she'd have her fingernails in the dashboard, even at low speed.
Could not handle it.
No, she's a bad rider.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I did that job for about a year and a half, and then I moved into production management. I was the production supervisor, so I was the number 2 guy in the plant, or co-number 2 with the maintenance supervisor, and but I was in charge of all the production personnel and all the scheduling.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and I went from that, and I was bringing 2 different plants together. The company had sold a plant in North Atlanta, and they were moving those personnel into the South Atlanta plant, and it was like the Hatfields and McCoys, because the guys from the North Atlanta plant were all African American, and the guys from the South Atlanta plant were all rednecks.
Oh yeah, you mentioned you really had to toe the line with everyone, trying to get everyone to get along.
Yeah.
And you grew up in Memphis, so you kind of knew both cultures.
Coming from Memphis helped, but it was a challenge. But I would have to find the half a dozen or so people on either side that I could trust to get the word out of what we had to get accomplished and how I wanted people to get along, and we weren't going to go around, because they were bad about sabotaging each other to make the other group work harder.
Like making the other people look worse so
Yes.
they look better.
Yeah.
Yeah, which of course brings everyone down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I managed to successfully navigate that, and that got me my promotion to Chicago.
Okay. That's Illinois. It's like, what, 94, 95?
It's 1991.
Okay, 91. Okay, I didn't realize you were in Chicago that long.
1991 or 92.
And this is where you're
It must have been closer to 92, 93, because you were born in 95. Yeah. We were there a little over 2 years, but 3 winters.
Okay.
But at the beginning of all that was when my mom got sick with cancer. So I would fly. So we were moving from Atlanta to Chicago, and for about 6 months, I just went to work, left everybody in Atlanta. I would fly home to see the girls one weekend, and then fly down to see my mother the next weekend. And then, and of course, during the weeks I was working in Chicago. That was a stressful time.
6 months where you were living in Atlanta, flying up to Chicago to work.
Yeah.
And then flying down to Florida to see your mother, who's terminally ill at this point.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. They told me they found it on a Labor Day. The doctor called me, and she passed away in May, which was a couple months longer than they had originally expected. So.
Yeah.
So after she passed and we buried her, then we moved everybody up to Chicago.
Wow.
And,
yeah, that had to have been a crazy 6 months.
that was sort of about when things started breaking down in my relationship with your mother.
Okay.
We got to Chicago, and it was basically a upper middle class suburb, and all the women were in each other's business. So she was getting all kind of coaching on how evil I was, and
oh no,
how to make me pay and so forth and so on.
Oh no! And then the wheels started turning in her head.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I was born. Boom! I came out.
Yeah.
Great surprise.
September '95.
Not planned, right?
No, we've told you that before. That's not new.
Yeah, I know it. I love that fun fact, though. Because you're like right in the middle of this crazy time in life. You've just buried your mother. You're trying to figure out, basically heading an oil plant up there, right?
It's still a resin plant.
Okay, it was a resin plant, yeah. And then everything else goes on. Then you're like, hey, you're going to have another child, by the way.
Well, and your mother had already told me she wanted a divorce.
Wow.
So that part didn't break my heart. It's just, okay, well, now I got a new baby I'm not going to get to see much of as a baby.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. When you were having your first child, what was some of the thoughts you had of like how you wanted to be as a parent, or did it change your mindset at all?
Did which part change my mindset?
Just when you first had Heather, when you first had your first child.
Not really, because I felt like both my mother, even though they did things differently, my mother and my grandmother had both been very even-tempered with me, but also let me learn things on my own.
Okay.
And I wasn't coddled, even though I was an only child. I had all my chores around the house, in addition to almost always having a job as a kid and a teenager. And so I just tried to approach it like I was raised.
Okay. That makes sense. Because I know you said that, I don't know a whole lot about Grandmama, but I've talked to Uncle Jim and some other people in the family, even Mom a bit, and they always have great respect for Grandma Patricia. And they said that she was like a pretty strong member of the family who kind of keep things smooth sailing.
She was a very strong woman. She was in the U.S. Coast Guard Reserve, and of course a teacher. Before that, she had made her way through college as a surgical technician in ORs.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did a lot in life.
Mm-hmm. She used to sail on that yacht with her boyfriend all the time. Just the two of them flew that sailboat. It was a 42-footer. Flew it all the way from Bradenton Beach to New York City.
Really?
Around the
in
Keys,
the Atlantic waters.
Tortugas.
Wow, that's cool.
Just two of them on a 42-foot sailboat.
Yeah, that had to have been a lot of work too.
Mm-hmm.
Man,
I wouldn't be brave enough to take on a challenge like that.
I was gonna say, did you ever sail with it?
No, I wouldn't have. Oh, I might have gone with the two of them, but they never asked me to.
Gotcha.
Had too much going on with kids,
Yeah, no kidding. I'm about to be in that same boat.
Mm-hmm.
So, Chicago. I'm born. Pretty soon after that, things break down. You get the divorce.
Mm-hmm.
Then what?
So your mom moved back to Pontotoc with her mom and you guys, and I was also in the middle of all that when right after you were born, and we were getting divorced or separating. Divorce took a little while, but I got fired from my job, and basically my take on it is I got fired for doing what I was told by top management, and that pissed all the employees off.
Sometimes that happens. Man, that's a tough balance.
I was the scapegoat. Somebody had to, fall on the stake, or fall on the sword, and they made me fall on.
What happened? Like, did they get in trouble for something?
No. There had just been 2 union votes. Both had ended in a tie, so the plant was never union. But after your second union vote, while you're in charge, you sort of kind of move on,
Okay, yeah, because I know for a long time you were like anti-union. You're like, I do not like unions too much. Not a fan.
I don't like managing plants with unions because people throw up all these crazy work rules at you just to not have to do work.
Okay.
I understand the purpose of unions, particularly trade unions, but even unions for production workers. It's just that there's just so much you can't affect any type of change hardly in a union environment. It just takes enormous amount of energy. If you want to improve the overall quality of the product or the overall productivity of the facility, or even this, safety is not as difficult because the union will work with you on the safety side, but the productivity and efficiencies are just damn near impossible.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you learned a lot about that then.
Yeah. Of course, later in life, I wish we had a chemist union. I needed some protection.
Yeah, ironically, that would have helped.
But that,
Yeah, I remember I wasn't involved in the direct creation, but I worked at this call center out in Missoula, Montana, when I was in my probably 20 years old.
Yeah.
And they unionized because AT&T bought out DirecTV.
Right.
So they did their first union vote. And the guy who was putting everything together, he got fired. And then he went to the local newspaper, the Missoulian, and talked to them and interviewed them. And they basically exposed how AT&T had fired him for unionizing. And so they had to hire him back. It was a crazy time for that company.
Yeah.
Because I worked, and I was in college. So I kind of did this thing where I would work and then take the certain times of the year off. Mm-hmm. But they weren't going to allow that anymore. They were like, no more part-time working. And so the union kind of protected the college labor that we worked at the call center.
That's good.
Yeah.
No, it has its purposes, and it can have good things. But it is, as far as because when I was coming up running manufacturing facilities, it was during the era of the quality improvement cycle.
Yeah.
Essentially American companies were trying to catch up to the Koreans and Japanese in terms of quality.
Okay.
So we were really having to, started using statistics to drive our decision making and monitor our batches and how we did all that stuff. And
so you could stay competitive.
Yeah, and that was getting people to change is just sometimes difficult.
Yeah, change is difficult for people, for sure. So do you think that quality-wise, America has stayed competitive now in the 21st century?
I do.
Me too.
I see it when, because some of the businesses that I worked with, meaning customers and or people that tried to sell us raw materials or people that we collaborated with on projects, might be originate from not really third world countries, but less technology friendly countries. You could tell you might be a little bit behind the Koreans and the Japanese, but these other countries are way behind the U.S.
Right. Yeah.
In terms of just having quality systems, understanding what quality is, understanding what safety is, workplace safety.
That makes a lot of sense.
And the Koreans sort of go to the other extreme. They get so focused on the numbers that they have no creativity.
Okay. It's almost robotic. Just we're going to put everything out. Yeah, because I know that Korean facilities, they kind of do. This wasn't too long ago, a couple of years ago. They did a little expose on their making of food products, like fish cakes and whatever else they put in the grocery stores.
Okay.
And they're like really well known for being clean, orderly.
Yeah.
High standards.
High quality.
Yeah, and still decent taste supposedly, although I've never had it. But anyhow, okay, so back to the Chicago thing. When you come back out of Chicago, you moved down to Dallas, right?
I moved to Dallas. Yeah, I moved to Dallas. First out in the country near the plant, and then later I moved into the city up in some condominiums that are now part of SMU campus. It's a green space. But
okay. And this is in, 96, 97?
96.
Yeah. And that's when you got sick, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, in 95, shortly after you were born, your cousin Lydian was riding with me to go get you guys down in Pontotoc. and I kept drinking water, no, drinking a lot of juice actually. And she said, "You need to get checked for diabetes." And so I got checked, and they thought it was type 2, and they kept trying to give me different.
Okay. Go ahead. We had
pause
some business going. Hold on. We're going to pause here.
Hello.
And we are back. Okay. For those who don't know, Jerry runs a business out of the house, so sometimes we may have to take a pause whenever a business is happening. It's carpet cleaning. But yeah, like you said, at this point, it's mid-90s. Me and my sisters are living in Pontotoc, Mississippi. You're living in Dallas, and you were talking about how you got the diagnosis for diabetes thanks to cousin Lydia, who's a nurse. So
Right.
she kind of knew what was up.
So I didn't know anything about diabetes myself at the time, and I just went to a family practice physician, and he tried every possible oral med under the sky, and finally, after about a year of my sugars being way over 400, I decided to go to a specialist, and that's when I got started on insulin, which is what ultimately, saved my life, changed my life.
Yeah. Yeah, because I imagine you felt terrible all the time for that year.
For a whole year. Could barely walk. I had so much neuropathy in my feet.
Jeez Louise, that's craziness. Well, it just goes to show the doctor makes all the difference.
Yeah. Picking the right one and the right type. But yeah, just in terms of working, I was the number 2 guy back to being a production supervisor in a resin plant, a little bit smaller plant than the other 2, and really good group of people. That was when I came to appreciate how important having a work environment that with good people in it that you enjoy was.
Yeah. That's what's kept me around with the company I'm with. Is like the work is hard, but the people are cool, and they really care about each other and about the clients.
So yeah, we went for about 2 years, where every other weekend I'd drive from Pontotoc, from Dallas to Pontotoc to Memphis to keep you guys at the Fraser house, and then do that. I'd leave at noon.
Oh, you had your mother's house in Fraser.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had you guys at my mother's house in Fraser, and then on Sunday I'd take you back, and that went on for about 2 years until I finally decided, I can't keep doing this, and I took a job here in Memphis running the corn oil refinery.
Okay, so you weren't at AOC then? At the corn
No,
oil place?
I wasn't. AOC had got I wasn't at AOC when I went to Georgia.
Right. Yeah, you were away from them for a while through all that.
Yeah. So from really wasn't as long as you think. It was from '89 to '98, but it was a long 9 years. A lot happened.
Yeah, you stayed busy at 9. Life went up, down.
Well, actually,
and
it was
sideways.
2001 before I went back to AOC. It was 1998 when I came back to Memphis.
Okay, and you decided because you wanted to be close to the kids.
Right.
And you were kind of back in better health at this point? Had you worked?
Yeah,
your
the
way up?
insulin was taken. The insulin was working, and I was getting in better health. I was.
Were you seeing anybody, or were you just living the bachelor life?
In Dallas, I just lived the bachelor life, and when I came back to Memphis is when I started seeing Rhonda.
Rhonda, yes, I remember her a little bit from my younger years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure my sisters remember her better, but I was pretty young. Okay, how did you meet Rhonda?
Through Lydian. She was a friend of Lydian's.
Okay, so you and Lydian have stayed pretty close then throughout the years.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't realize how close you guys were.
Yeah.
All the years. So you come back to Memphis. Did you buy the house here in Bartlett?
Yeah. But sold the house in Fraser, bought the house here in Bartlett. Actually, the other way around. I bought the house in Bartlett first, but still.
Yeah.
And then about 6 months later, you guys came to live here.
Wow. So were you pretty smart about your money, you'd say, by the time you moved to Georgia, and after that messed up with the real estate agent?
After from the point in time that I found out I had messed myself over on getting that mortgage in Georgia.
Yeah.
And I did manage to get one anyway, but I had to find a real lenient bank.
Yeah.
I started watching my money like a hawk from that point forward. Now, I'd always watched how much I spent because I didn't grow up with much.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
but in terms of watching the big picture of money and other people trying to get part of your money.
Absolutely. Everyone wants you to invest in something or do something with it, for sure. So, do you have any financial advice for people coming up then that you've learned over the years?
Minimize your interest payments. Don't buy what you can't afford to pay cash for. I mean, I realize some big ticket items like a car and a house, you're going to have to.
Yep.
If your fridge goes out, you don't have much choice. If your air conditioner goes out, you had to borrow the money to get it running. Those kind of things you don't have a choice about. But you got a choice of A, whether you take a vacation, and B, where you go and how much you spend. You've got a choice on whether you drive a used car
Or a new Ford Raptor.
Yeah, and you got to, cars are tough to research in terms of reliability, but you've got to, I remember, now I don't have any of them now, but I used to keep the car buyer guides from every year that would give you the reliability on used cars and all that kind of stuff, and I would study those things cover to cover.
Okay. So what car were you driving when you came back to Memphis in '98?
Oh, I don't remember. I think when I got back here, I bought that Dodge Ram, which turned out not to be terribly reliable one. But
did you always like trucks? I know for a little while you had a motorcycle.
Yeah, I had gotten the motorcycle when I was in Chicago, and then that was quite the feat to be diabetic and not have any energy and drive it all the way down to Dallas. It took me like 3 days.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, that had to have been crazy.
Yeah,
that's a madman's mission right there.
Yeah, driving in rainstorms and what have you. But yeah, I've always liked to have a truck.
Yeah.
I don't prefer to necessarily take trips in trucks. Of course, trucks ride a lot smoother today than they did back then. But
yeah, I was just curious. Well, that's good advice. I think that's kind of common sense, but easy to lose track of, like you said, in this day and age.
People don't focus on it; they just spend what willy-nilly.
Yeah. Yes. 100%. Yeah.
I'd say now it's been a Dodge Ram that I bought it in '96. It was probably the last car I ever had a mortgage on. Every year then since then I've paid cash for it.
You paid cash for the whole car?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're doing something right with saving, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Not many people can say that.
If you want to hear, you may have already listened to this guy. I don't remember his first name. Ramsey.
Yes.
The financial
Dave
advisor.
Ramsey. Yes.
Dave Ramsey. Yeah.
Yep.
His and my ideas coincide about 90% of the time when
Okay.
it comes to managing money.
Okay. Yeah, he's a good one. He's got like a podcast and everything too.
Yeah.
For sure. So when you get back to Memphis, you're still under that same plan with my mom where you're like seeing us every other weekend, right? Going back and forth.
For about 6 months. And then when Heather turned 12, she said she wanted to live here, and your mother said, well, you should just take them all. And I said, yes, I should. I wanted 2-3 years ago.
Okay. And so that's when, what lawyer did you hire?
Mitch Moskovitz.
Mitch Moskovich, who supposedly helped you out a whole lot, right?
Yeah. He helped me with your mom. He helped me not get taken by your mom a second time.
Right. Because my aunt on my mom's side was a legal assistant, so they kind of had an in with lawyers here in Memphis, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, you had to come up to task with that, which I imagine was another stressful bout in your life. Anything to do with legal stuff.
Yeah.
So, after you get custody of us, the court case is closed.
Yes.
We're living up here.
Right.
What are you thinking?
Well, everything was good for a while till your sister started to start to have problems in middle school. And
Okay.
then
This would have been Nicole?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so when Nicole started going through her stuff, it started putting strain on Rhonda and I's marriage, and I just decided that, for Nicole's sake, for all of your sake, that it was better if I just did it on my own.
So that's why you decided to divorce Rhonda at the end of the day, was because, like, listen, I need to look after my kids. This kid needs some special attention.
I mean, the blended family thing may work for some people, but it was like having two tribes in one house, and it just wasn't working.
Yeah, because for context,
none of her kids would listen to anything I said. You know, I'd make my kids listen to her, but you know.
And Rhonda had 3 kids of her own.
Yes.
Which were also kind of all in the teen years, right?
They ranged. You were the youngest. At that time, you were 5.
Yeah.
Michael was 19.
At the oldest.
Amanda was 17. Then Heather and Mallory were pretty similar age. Then Nicole.
Wow. So when Heather said she wanted to live with you, did you end up having like some kind of long talk with her, or like dad-daughter moment, or was it just like, no, this is the way?
No, I had more or less been hoping for it and waiting for it. You know, I was actually more concerned that she'd get into middle school and get into doing her own thing and not want to live with me anymore like she had, you know, when she was younger. So, but it worked out.
Yeah, it did. I'm glad I grew up with you. I was talking to Scout about this the other day, and he was like, what if you grew up with your mom? And I was like, I think I would be in a much stranger position than I am right now. Let me say that.
Yeah.
I'd be a lot different person. For sure. And I'm not sure if it would be for the best.
Even if Dad had helped you financially, the fact that your day-to-day, the day-to-day guidance in your life wasn't going to be there would have basically caused a lot of roadblocks, not as opened as many doors for you, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so you split with Rhonda. Her kids move out. It's you and us at this point. Nicole's kind of struggling with mental health things going on. And is that the point where you started learning about bipolar disorder and manic depressive and all that?
A little, but I have to give Jerry credit for all that. I had met Jerry, and she had taken the courses for adoption. And so she knew all about that. So she started bringing me up to speed on all that.
Okay. So she came in and she was like, hey, I think your daughter might be struggling with this and this issue.
Yeah.
And that's when you realized it got passed down in the family tree through the genetics. Yeah. You're a scientist. You know.
When I look back at it at that point, I'm like, okay, so now this explains a whole lot of what I called Carla's craziness, you know?
Right, yes. Yeah, and I guess Heather is looking at colleges probably around this time too. Yeah. This is like early 2000s.
Yeah, she was ready. It was good for her. She was ready to get out, and of course she got a full tuition scholarship to DePaul. So.
Yeah. Did you do the whole college tour with her?
Oh yeah. I did that with both of you. I would have done it with Nicole if she was interested.
Yeah.
She didn't want to apply herself in math.
Math's a tough one. That's a tough one. It was tough for me too. When I hit calculus, that was about where I started. Oh no, I have to actually like study hard now and like really consider things. Well, what do you think was the most fun vacation you had with us growing up?
I will say this. I think that trip that all of us made down to Orlando to Disney World, Epcot, and all that stuff. That was a fun, bonding moment.
Yeah.
And then I think the most fun we ever had was when you and Nicole and Jerry and I rented that RV and went up to Wisconsin.
That was legendary too.
Yeah.
I remember loving that.
Yeah, that was my favorite vacation ever. But both of those were good vacations.
Okay, 2 highlights. I love that. Yeah, I know several people who've gone to Universal Studios down there.
Yeah,
that's different than Epcot, right? Epcot's Disney.
It's different. We went to all of them.
Oh, you went to Universal and Disney?
We all did. You did too.
I was really young.
You were pooping your diapers all the way there.
Yeah, sorry about that. That's awesome. Oh man, so yeah, that was quite the vacation then. And at this point, I guess 2008 rolls around because I remember that being a big year for the family too.
well, 2006 first, when Jerry and I got married, y'all all came up to Massachusetts.
Oh yeah, we did. We met her parents.
Yeah. But then, 2008, I guess, was a big year. You mean financially? What do you? I don't.
Yeah, that was. I remember you sat us down and had a conversation where you were like, "All right, listen, we're not going to be doing vacations anymore. We're going to have to cut back on some things. Be smarter about it."
Oh yeah.
Nothing changed dramatically. It's just I remember it had this kind of feeling in the house, like, oh, things are getting real.
Yeah. So what had happened financially was I was making pretty good bonuses all from say 2001 to 2008, and when the financials fell out, those bonuses stopped.
Yeah.
And they didn't pick up again until like 2014.
Man. Okay. Well, I'll say this: we're hitting the 50-minute mark, so I know we didn't quite cover the full timeline of your life.
We're up to where you were an adult, so.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much we got it from there. I just had a few random questions, kind of fun ones, a little bit deep ones I was going to ask you, and then we'll close it out.
All right.
Okay. Let's see. If you were not in the United States, where would you live?
I guess Australia.
Australia?
Yeah.
All right, good day, mate.
Yeah.
If you're president tomorrow, what is your first order that you're putting out? I caught you by surprise on
You
that
caught me by surprise. I don't have a clue about that one.
one. Okay, let's get that. Oh yeah, is it true you did jury duty for a capital murder case?
Not capital murder. I was on a federal grand jury, and so I had to go once a month for 24 months, and essentially, if you have read of what grand juries do, they decide whether a prosecution can take the trial to court. Except that it's almost always a yes. It's very unusual because it doesn't have to be a unanimous vote against it, but it has to be like 2/3 of the people have to disagree with the prosecution that it should advance.
And notoriously, like when federals prosecute, they got the evidence lined up.
No, we didn't. There was no capital murder. No.
What's your biggest secret? We got a big shrug.
Big secret. You stumped me with that one too.
Okay, we'll pass on that one. Pink Floyd, are they overrated or underrated?
I'm not a real big Pink Floyd fan, so I guess I would say overrated.
Okay. What do you think is your favorite band in general?
Favorite band? Oh, I like all of them. I like several of them significantly well. You like the Eagles, but I guess Blue Oyster Cult.
Blue Oyster Cult? Okay,
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's solid. I love their song Godzilla.
Yeah.
What happens when we die?
It's a great question. Hopefully something and not just nothing.
Hopefully something. Yes. What's one piece of advice you would give to your grandchildren?
Listen to your parents.
I like that. You hear that? Now you gotta listen. That's good. Do you identify as Christian yourself?
Yes.
Okay, cool. That's all I had for the random question segment. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for sitting down for a whole hour with me.
All right, son.